Pope Francis has died.
Con profondo dolore devo annunciare la morte del nostro Santo Padre Francesco.
The Church has always been closely affiliated with the British Crown, given their long history together. However, rumor has it that the late Pope Francis never had a particularly close relationship with the current British monarchy. But just a few weeks before he passed, he sent a heartfelt message to an unexpected name in the royal family, Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales. Why choose Kate above all others? Why was this tribute so important to him? Join us as we discuss the late Pope's possible intention to send a message to Kate Middleton. Kate Middleton receives an unexpected brief from the Vatican. Although stranger things have happened, Kate Middleton being passed a coded message from the highest echelon of the Vatican might make a strong case for being among the strangest occurrences to have ever happened. Let's talk about Kate. Born Catherine Middleton into a legal family whose choice of profession has always been law and ownership of a wool firm. However, in a moment when fate meets with luck and extremely perfect timing, Cupid's arrow pierced her heart, and Prince William's, heir apparent to the British throne. Kate was never born royal or into some noble family. She was raised in a working-class family that took education as seriously as possible. Hence, the attachment of the princess tag came through marriage. Although it is rarely heavily publicized, being married into royalty, as opposed to being born into it directly, can be a little challenging. It is often rumored that no matter how far up the food chain the person might be, they would be reminded of how they came into all that power, influence, and name every time they make an attempt at flexing it. Hence, it was somewhat surprising that Pope Francis, who has rarely been closely associated with the British Crown, chose to send her a direct message from a large pool of naturally born royals, including notable names like Prince William and Princess Anne. But why Kate? And why now? Let's dial back a couple of months on memory lane when Kate openly discussed her struggles with cancer. Oh, Kate was shocked. She had never been through such an ordeal like that and wasn't particularly sure how to deal with it either. Consequently, she curled up in her shell and abandoned her duty as a working royal until she got better. However, before coming out to discuss her problem with the world, her sudden disappearance from public view had birthed rumors about a possible divorce or another Meghan Markle story dragging out a prince from the palace. They were quite bleak rumors. Hence, in March 2024, she finally broke her silence, discussing how much she had suffered. She urged anyone who suffered from the same disease to stay strong for their families and try not to break under pressure. Of course, news of her battle with cancer reached the Pope, who decided to send her a message to support her. Coincidentally, Kate was going through her sick phase at the same time as the Pope, so he knew what she was going through. When did Kate get the message? Kate gets the Pope's message. While Kate rested in the comfort of her home at Kensington Palace, she received mail that looked suspiciously like it came from an official source. Upon further inspection, she turned the envelope over and found the papal seal. At this point, there was no confusion in her heart anymore. She had been addressed by the Church. Her troubled heart came simmering down. It felt almost as though a tranquil spirit had visited her, and she just couldn't escape the feeling. Sources close to her house in Kensington Palace saw her hold onto the letter and just look at the seal until a single tear rolled down one of her cheeks. It felt almost proverbial, like someone who had seen something that she couldn't explain. After a mini phase of looking lost, she suddenly found her courage and broke the seal on the letter. Sources close to her believe that the letter came from the Pope himself, Pope Francis. Allegedly, she couldn't hide the joy that she felt, and she smiled uncontrollably until it developed into a much louder laugh. She had just gotten a letter from the Pope wishing her good health. Now, think about it. He could have just called the Kensington residence and reached out in an official capacity, wishing her well. All that formal shenanigans, and everyone calls it a day. Still, instead, he took the time to write a letter to her and added a papal seal that helped her immediately recognize from whom it came and why it had to be read confidentially. It was a message for her and her alone. It's not every time a pope writes a letter by himself and sends it through the mail, leaving no digital footprint. Could there be more to this letter than meets the eye? Kate Middleton definitely thought so, as sources close to her in Kensington claim to have seen her leave the fireplace and head to her private chambers, with the letter firmly clasped in her hands and her eyes scanning the room, checking for a possible spy. In the letter, she found the Pope's writing, wishing her well and a speedy recovery, at least in the first paragraph. However, upon reading further, she noticed that she had missed a well-hidden message, and it was far more sinister than just a message wishing her a speedy recovery. The Pope was telling her a secret, a cryptic message about the relationship between the Crown and the Church, and a premonition of a possible struggle for power, as someone in the British royal family had already sown the seeds. Not all who wear a smile wish you well, but I do. Speedy recovery, the message allegedly read. How did Kate react to the message? Shaken by a holy warning. Kate eventually locks herself away, deeply lost in the reflection of her thoughts and just how far she could take the warning. Was this some trick letter from someone playing a prank on her? Would anyone really joke with the Pope's name? How will they have gotten the papal seal? It definitely had to be the Pope, and that confuses her even more. However, she takes new precautions, heightening the already tight security in Kensington Palace, specifically in June 2024. The road was closed to the public, and temporary measures, including new chicanes, gates, and barriers, were installed to address complaints about speeding cyclists and improve safety. However, after the speeding cyclist problem was dealt with, some sources claim the future queen sensed her paranoia, as she allegedly got more people to install more security cameras in hopes of calming her nerves and keeping it under wraps, mostly because she couldn't deal with Prince William finding out about the letter. It was just too dicey. Think about it for a second. As already established, Kate wasn't born as a member of the royal family. She only got her title from being married to the House of Windsor's heir apparent to the British throne. Hence, it wasn't the wisest or easiest decision to tell her husband that there might be a member of the royal family, possibly one of his aunts, uncles, or siblings, conspiring against them, especially. So she planned in silence, hoping to figure out the Pope's puzzle. She just couldn't bear the thought of carrying all that weight on her shoulder, cursed with knowledge that she would rather never have, and the only person in the world who might be able to decode it for her, the Pope, was also treating a health problem that required him to have enough bed rest. While this prophecy was a blessing to keep her apprised of the situation, she also needed to find a way to decipher it. So she locked herself away at Kensington. Who could it be? She thought out loud. After days and weeks of thinking, crying, praying, poking and prodding at the letter like some hidden answer would fall from it, she realized that she had come up with a big fat nothing and actually needed the Pope to make sense of it. However, she could tell that time was a factor, as rumors of the Pope's health deteriorating consistently clashed with reports that he was getting so much better. Sources close to her say that she contemplated writing back, but she thought long and hard about it, and how it could ruin the sense of secrecy that the good Pope had already fostered by sending his letter with the good old-fashioned papal seal to ensure that the letter wasn't read by someone else before it got to her. Hence, while she stayed and recovered from cancer in her home at Kensington Palace, she was also waiting for the chance of a second letter that might explain and tell her the whole story. A Godot that never came. Sources close to her claim that she was waiting at least until she was better. But just how bad was Pope Francis's health? Pope Francis's failing health. As a man with a history of healthy eating habits, which is reflected in his austere life, the Pope's sudden health problems were a shock to most people. However, soon everyone began to accept that the Pope was going through the natural phase for an older man. Hence, he was duly monitored, a feat that soon proved futile. As of February 2025, the Pope was said to be fighting a losing battle with pneumonia in his lungs while also experiencing some signs of kidney failure. Soon, he was hospitalized at Rome's Gemelli Hospital on February 14, 2025, where he was fighting a respiratory tract infection. However, the infection became even worse, developing into pneumonia in both lungs. According to the Vatican, Pope Francis is in critical condition and he has been receiving treatment for the double pneumonia. Blood tests on Sunday also showed mild signs of kidney failure, but things are currently under control, the Vatican said, referring to the kidney's function of filtering waste products from the blood. Soon the Pope developed anemia, so he refused blood transfusions and received hematin, a treatment that can help increase hemoglobin levels, which in turn helps the blood carry more oxygen. According to the Vatican, he remains alert and responsive. On Sunday, the Pope attended Mass in his apartment in Gemelli Hospital with the doctors and nurses who are overseeing his treatment, the Vatican said. News of his bad health had begun to make the rounds, and Kate noticed that her window of opportunity to ask him a question about his letter to her was slowly being shut by the strong arms of the Vatican, who made sure to keep the Pope safe from any form of backlash from what she knew. She remained calm and waited for the chance to talk to or hear from him in another letter. However, she soon found out that she had waited too long, as Pope Francis finally gave up the ghost in April 2025. The death was reportedly from a cerebral stroke, which led to a coma and irreversible cardiac arrest before being pronounced dead. Now, that was it for Kate. She had just watched her only source of information, who informed her that a member of her husband's family was allegedly making a plot against the crown, and she could tell no one. While she continued to wander in her debate and showed a complete lack of confidence in the royals closest to her, her thoughts began to come together, and she became something of a silent observer, watching anyone who was not family with a hint of trust and some contempt in her eyes. But there was much that she could do as the weight of the crown lay heavy on her neck. Uneasy does lie the head that wears the crown. Having had this information, how does Kate handle palace politics? Will she survive? Text wrapping break? A brand new Kate Middleton. Kate Middleton was never born with a silver spoon in her mouth, but upon becoming Princess of Wales, that changed a long time ago. While she remains completely interested in finding out the truth about the Pope's letter, she plunges right into the heart of the matter, spending a considerable amount at Buckingham Palace, which is more akin to New York. While Kate was a stranger to the world of politics and royalty, she wasn't just a pushover who could be easily frightened either. Once, she worked with her sister, Pippa Middleton, with whom she built a business. Hence, she has learned to deal with the cutthroat business world, but not many know. However, she had always been the first one to smile, even in a room of 100 people. But after learning from the Pope about the type of conspiracy that looms over her family like a dark cloud, she had become more cautious, impatient, and willing to jump at any sight of trouble. She just couldn't help it. Sources around Buckingham claimed that they had never seen such a change in a royal bar, Prince Harry, of course, but most couldn't tell why lovely Kate had suddenly become this new person. While some whispered that she had always been like that, and was only waiting for the right time to show who she really is, others believed that she was suffering from the curse of a knowledge that she previously did not have. Now Kate is more nimble, suddenly sharper like a horseback rider, watching everyone who wronged her and her family with a studious eye. Could it be U's soared around her mind, but she covered them up with a smile every time the camera came by. Sources close to her reported Prince William's frustration at her sometimes when they were in Buckingham together on an assignment or event, as Kate just couldn't keep her suspicious self together. At night, while she retired to her room at night, rumor has it that she suddenly started to sleep alone, poring over the letter she had received from the Pope with new fears of who it might be. Figuring out this fatal puzzle that threatened her future as queen and possibly the lives of her children kept her up at night and mostly completely changed her. It was a brand new Kate, and she was a bag of nerves. For the first time in her life, Kate had suddenly begun to understand why the phrase, "the survival of the fittest," is also applied to succession in a monarchy. Soon, she realized that there might be reasons for drastic actions taken by wives in the monarchy. Do you remember Princess Diana's decision to accept a divorce from Prince Charles at the time? Or even more recently, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Could Kate's newfound information drive her towards the same decisions? And just how impactful would the repeat of the Meghan-Harry escape be to the reputation of the crown? The heir might follow the spare. Seeing how paranoid Kate has become about everyone and everything that the palace has to offer, sources close to her have sensed a possible relapse of the Meghan-Harry problem resurfacing at the palace. What is the Meghan-Harry problem? Let us take a trip down memory lane, stretching far back into time only as far as 2020, when both Prince Harry and Meghan Markle chose wicked love over duty and lost their place in the hearts of British people. And, of course, the British crown. Oh, Meghan and Harry were different. They didn't even need a pope's validation to do what they did. They simply left on their gut feeling and a few obvious facts that they just couldn't ignore, ranging from subtle racism to the media being spoon-fed some compromat on Meghan allegedly by the upper echelons of the British royal court. However, the royal family did think they had leverage here. Harry is a Windsor child, meaning he probably never really had to work for money and had everything prepared to his taste all the time. He lived a perfect life and was being waited on like the prince that he is. Hence, the general notion that he surely wasn't going to leave all that behind in pursuit of some American wife. Well, it is safe to say that they were in for a really rude awakening. Meghan, who was completely born into a working-class family and watched her parents go out of their way to set her up for a good future through education and telling her to pursue her career, was not fazed by leaving it all behind. She saw no future in a place where she would have to look over her own shoulders every time she walked. Not only was her name being dragged to pieces by the media, but she was also flatly told that her child might not get to use the His Highness in his name, and could very possibly be denied the security that he was entitled to by birthright because of the possibility of his skin being dark. Tears welled in her eyes as she saw the ruthlessness of the crown, and how it could be extended to even children. Think pieces dropped week after week, with new descriptions of her attitude at some event, or giving someone a stare down, or another version of the Tiara Gate incident, where she was often described as a femme fatale, a beautiful woman in a Gothic story who drives a hero mad and makes him lose his way, a perfect Catherine to Harry's Heathcliff. The report suggests that she had corrupted Harry's good morals and bright energy that he used to have in the palace. All these culminated in their leaving, and they never looked back. Sources close to Kate in the palace have described a similar epilogue for Kate, who has been reaching a decision quietly on what her next move should be. Will she be reloading the Harry-Meghan special, or has she decided to stay and fight? Kate chooses to stay and fight. While there was a chance for a Meghan-Harry reload staring her right in the face, exploring a shot at running was not appealing to her, and to be fair, their reasons were different. Meghan is American, so she could run home. But in Kate's case, who was born British, where else was she going to go that would feel like home? It was a valid question, and she knew that leaving all of her family's history behind over a hidden letter she got from the Pope was always going to be a drastic choice. Was she ready for the backlash? Would it eventually be worth it? Answers to these questions resonated deeply in her heart, and she didn't like the sound of it. So she stayed and chose not to follow the spare. Additionally, she is the direct successor to the English throne when all is said and done, following the reign of King Charles and Queen Camilla. Hence, there was really no serious escape plan. So she chose to stay and fight. However, she needed a battle plan if her choice to stay was going to be valid and beyond a reasonable doubt. So this time, she chose the most straightforward strategy, being in plain sight. While Kate had often been rumored to be one of the princesses who loved her own space and preferred to be away from the media, even when attending public events, that soon changed. But no one could tell why. She started going to more events after getting better in Kensington Palace, following her bout with cancer and an abdominal surgery. The Princess of Wales, as she is officially known, appeared at the Trooping the Colour on Saturday, an annual military parade held in central London to mark King Charles's birthday, marking her first public appearance since she fought and won against cancer. She decided that hiding in plain sight was her best defense. Think about it. Is there anyone dumb enough to harm the future Queen of England where everyone can see them? It was a calculated move, and it seemed to be paying off. However, Kate, who still believes in the Pope's warnings, has reportedly been seen continually reading the letter every time she gets the chance, hoping to find a clue, something she may have missed, and perhaps discover who the villain really is. Whether the Pope's message had more to it or was simply a warning remains a mystery, one only he could answer. But that ship has sailed. Who do you think the Pope was referring to in the message? Just how important is Kate's decision to stay and fight, rather than turn tail and run with her kids? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.